Hello, and welcome to Create Utopia. I'm Chicory.
And I'm Zero.
And today we're talking about a lot of different things, including cultural appropriation and tribalism, and what was the other thing, Zero?
We're talking about cultural appropriation. We're talking about tribalism. We're going to talk about the generic things where people fight and hatred and all the stuff you wrote in your outline
Yeah,
at
all
3
of
in the
those things.
morning. So something we should definitely talk about before we start this episode
Oh, first of
is
all, what are we
that
playing? Sorry to interrupt
we're
you.
playing Faster Than Light. I'm trying to die. This game is going really well. With a bit of backstory, we tried to record this episode on Thursday, right after the Charleston shooting happened, and it didn't go well. And thankfully, Chicory's computer killed us twice at the 15-minute mark. And I think it's really important to note that when really huge events happen, we have a tendency to everyone kind of piles on. And it would be a really good idea in general if we took a little bit more time to think about things before we all started piling on to each other and trying to solve the problem by shouting at each other. So, oh, this is going to happen forever because I'm dumb. Haha.
What are you... Okay.
So yeah, that's where we're at. Hopefully this conversation will be much better than our previous conversation, based entirely on the fact that we're going to be a little bit smarter about it.
We'll try. We'll try really
I
hard.
have had time to think, and I'm not nearly as belligerent as I was on Thursday. You are free to be as belligerent as you want.
Yeah, belligerence and shouting. I mean, no, I don't.
Just endless shouting from you, I'm sure.
Arrgh. Shouting can be fun, but I don't find it to be always particularly constructive. Sometimes it's all you can do, but
Sometimes it's all over except for the shouting.
yeah, I would definitely say it's kind of like that. I don't know, but once you start people listening and Zero listens to me, I feel like shouting becomes less constructive.
Well, but even when you're in a big group of people who... Sometimes the most dangerous situation is when you're in a big group of people who agree with each other and something emotional has just happened. Because that's when everyone is not shouting, but you're all banding together, and that's really... Those are the times when these huge tribal mentalities tend to crop up.
That's true. Um, do we want to? I want to go over really fast, sort of what tribalism is. So when we say tribalism, we're not really thinking about First Nations people or Native American people or things like that. It's a term for
Or Indians, if you prefer. Some people prefer to be called Indians.
or Indians. Tribalism is a term where it says loyalty to a tribe or other social group, especially when combined with strong negative feelings for people outside the group. So often it's defined not from what you are doing, but from how much you hate other people or how much you dislike other people. So an example of this could also be, I think patriotism can play into that, but my favorite example is always people that are really, really into sports team and dislike other people because they like a different sports team, because that's
Yes.
sort of a less emotional thing. But obviously, like the key example of this is racism, where you hate a different group based on how they look different than you,
Yeah,
right?
which is in many ways the root. So, what a strange segue that was. Yeah,
Sorry.
tribal racism is not what I would call the most clear and extreme version of tribalism. I would definitely call that kind of our current level of patriotism, which didn't used to be a thing.
When was it not a thing?
Patriotism is relatively recent. People used to be allied to say they're king, but
Right.
like the idea that you had to be super proud of your country for no reason other than being like born to your country is relatively recent, like post World War One era recent.
Crazy.
A lot more you were maybe... It's kind of where the states' right movement comes from, is you would be loyal to kind of your area, but you weren't necessarily loyal to your country.
Hmm.
And that's a really important distinction because countries do lots of crazy things. And
Countries
going
do.
back to your comment earlier from a previous episode about the idea that, say, if you burn a flag, you're burning me or whatever,
But
that's an
I feel
idea that it's. It wasn't. You weren't saying that. You were saying that what if someone says that?
okay. Thank you for reminding me of the context.
Yes. It's really important in those situations to note that people have free speech, and that free speech might lead them to not always do things you like that they're doing, but they have as much right as an American to do that, as long as they're not hurting other people to exercise these things.
Right.
And that's a really difficult line to make when you get really tribal, is what is being done that hurts you. And that's really, really hard to define. So we do need to watch out and be careful in our definitions in those cases. Because you feel like this thing that you fought hard for is under attack. And then that leads you to being very defensive and leads to a number of the current issues we kind of have based on this level of defensiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you wanted to talk about some of those issues that definitely relate to tribalism.
Okay. So I wrote maybe 5 pages of thoughts down at 2:30 to 3:30 in the morning after having hung out with my friends for a long time last night, and now I'm reading these things and it's sort of intense and things, so I'm going to sort of start over with where I was beginning with my thoughts in what I was writing down at 2:30 in the morning. So, sort of backtracking from tribalism is these things called cultural constructs. So, lots of things can be cultural constructs, like fashion is a cultural construct, language is a cultural construct, right? Zero? Back me up?
I wouldn't say language is a cultural construct. Fashion is.
Okay. Well, cuisine.
Language is a communications aid, but it definitely a language might change depending on the culture you're in, and will definitely adopt words. But arguably, without language, you can't have a culture. So culture
Okay,
is more
fair.
of a language
But
based construct.
so language not is a little bit weirder for that. But money is a cultural construct, maybe, right?
Yes, money is a cultural construct.
But then there are things that, or there are other things that are culture constructs like race and countries and things like that, where race is a cultural construct for how we deal with people, but it's not really the same thing as how you look, like how, like your pigmentation in your skin is just genes. It's just how your genes are reading, your MRA is reading your DNA, and it's not, I don't know, it's not really a, sort of just the way things work. Or like in geography, the land masses aren't really countries. So I'm making sort of this thing where some things we assign value to in a culture, but there are things there we're making assumptions based on the way that things sort of are. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I don't either, but it's entertaining. Uh, I think it's also good because I think that a lot of people are having similar questions to the ones you're trying to express here. Even if you are expressing them somewhat awkwardly, there's a lot of people confused about these issues in a similar way.
Okay.
And you are doing an excellent job of expressing that confusion, I think.
Thank you.
I'm going to step back a bit, if that's okay.
Okay.
And let's talk about how not all these cultural constructs are equal.
No, that was
And
where I
one of
was
the
going with this, is that
All right,
some things
carry on.
are not equal to others. So, like, I think that that's a really good example where I was going to say that you can't compare some cultural constructs to each other. What was my example with that? I don't remember. Um, You can't compare money with how much like salt you use in a cuisine. You know, cuisine is a cultural construct. Money is a cultural construct. They're not interchangeable, right? Zero.
Well, taste is the cultural construct related to cuisine, but yes.
Okay.
Food is a thing that you make and then people eat for nutrition. The
Well,
types of food you like are taste based, and that would be a cultural construct. Yes, this is edible versus this is not edible. Like chicken legs in America versus chicken legs in China, or
yeah.
squab, aka pigeon, in France versus eating pigeon in America, which is becoming more of a thing. But yes, the construct of what is palatable or acceptable to taste, which I guess could be called cuisine. So, just to
I
clarify a bit. But you have the idea.
Thank you. Okay. But yeah, there's things that, are edible or aren't edible. There's how your genes work versus the importance that we put on certain genes. Do you know what I mean? Or
Yes.
certain the how certain genes are expressed even.
Yeah.
Usually everybody has really similar genes, but we read them. It's a long scientific discussion, but basically how your genes are read in each individual cell
Are
is a
you
little
going to
bit
get
different.
distractingly sexy on me? Because that could be a real problem.
I don't know how that would be sexy.
Were
I
you
don't
not aware of the whole distractingly sexy conversation?
know.
What do you even do on Twitter? Do you did so? I know I sent you an article on this. The
Oh,
scientist
that was
Tim
like,
Hunt.
yeah, I did read that. I read it on good old Facebook though, and not on Twitter. I don't tweet that
Gotcha.
much. Sorry,
The
I should tweet more.
he said that, and then for the next several days, there were women posting under the hashtag distractingly sexy of them in like bunny suits and the other various lab equipment, like
Hmm.
in the full body suits or with the goggles on. I just realized, like, when you say bunny suits, some people are going to think like Playboy bunny suits.
Yeah, that's
Bunny
immediately what I
suits
thought.
bunny suits are like that full lab get up where you have the face mask and the goggles and the when you picture a radiation suit,
Oh
you're
yeah.
probably also picturing a bunny suit, though they're not exactly the same. That's the terrible metaphor I'm going to use.
Okay. Yay, terrible metaphors. Okay,
Yep.
and so what did he back up a little bit? What did he originally say that caused all of these girls to put on these bunny suits?
Well, he said that basically the problem with women in a lab is that they distract you, you fall in love with them, and they cry if you criticize them.
Yeah,
And he said it in that this is a joke, this is totally not a joke way.
yeah. And people were
So,
like, "This is crap.
and
Don't
people
say
were,
things like that. What
yes,
the hell?"
understandably upset about it. And
Yeah.
quite correctly upset about it. Yeah, we're finally going to die, and I can kind of talk about why we're playing this game. I was having a really good run because we weren't recording.
Yeah. The
So,
instant we started recording, we started failing.
yep, continuing games from last time, from Thursday. So
Yay.
yeah, that's where the distractingly sexy hashtag came up of all these female scientists.
Yeah.
You didn't put that conversation on our outline though. So,
I didn't, but I think that it's worth mentioning, I
all
guess.
right, let's go
Anyway,
back to the
getting
hangar.
back on confident on thing that race is something that we ascribe to how cells are produced and read, right? It's a construct.
Race is a construct based around the genetic expression of certain genes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's pretty clear. And then some people tie in what we think of as race with geography. You know what I mean? And I think that that is what confuses a lot of people.
Really, that's what you think confuses a lot of people.
Well,
I guess you're. Some people do tie race to geography. It's true.
yeah, like Chinese people in China, Japanese people in Japan, African people in Africa, stuff like that, right?
The Venture Brothers joke of I don't know what the PC term is for a black vampire.
I've never heard that joke.
You
I'll
didn't.
watch enough Venture
There's a
Brothers.
comment where Oh crap, I can't remember his name. I love that character. Their Blade knockoff character.
Oh yeah.
Jefferson Twilight.
Yeah. Okay.
Jefferson Twilight slays Blackulas. He doesn't slay African American vampires because sometimes they're British. He doesn't know
Oh.
what the PC term is for a Blackula. It is one of my favorite jokes as a huge Blade fan and a huge fan of like those 70s exploitation flicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty excellent.
So for me to clarify, I guess in some ways the expression of genes was tied to where you lived as a people. So if you lived in a more northern area, you needed to absorb more sunlight, and so you got paler. Or if
Is this one
you,
of those times where you're making an analogy in order to save yourself from being embarrassed later?
I don't know, I don't think so.
So I guess where are you going with this? And is it going to end up anywhere positive that doesn't sound like you're being racist? Let's
I
just
think
stop
that
and think this line of reasoning through. Let's see.
I think that maybe it just tracks. It's going somewhere that maybe it doesn't need to go.
The
I think
question
what I was
is
going with is that people tie those meanings together and they don't have to be together.
no, ultimately we should think of every human as a human first and their
Yes.
secondary genetic characteristics as being less relevant. One of the big things
I
we
think where I
do in
was
your tribalism discussion is that we tend to equate things that are genetic expressions and are really private. Like you don't need this thing. It will have no effect on your life, but you want to judge it.
yeah.
And the more obvious it is, the more you want to judge it because it makes you feel better about your judging. But then when someone calls you out for your judging, you immediately step back and say, I'm not homophobic. I'm just calling it like I see it. As if the fact that you can see it has any relevance at all on it existing. It's one of those really weird privilege moments where people are, this thing is obvious. I get to comment on it because I'm a member of the group that people will listen to. And if someone else tries to comment counter to you or call you out on it, people will say, oh, that's not what I meant. You took what I said wrong. I'm not racist. I was just saying that lots of black people kill each other and it's okay for the cops to kill them. That's not racist. That's just a fact.
But it's not okay for anybody to kill anybody, I
Yeah,
think.
it's bad for humans to kill humans. It's bad to have crime where people kill each other. The color of your skin doesn't matter. If people are killing each other, it's always bad.
Always bad.
Yes. In a Yeah, if people are killing each other, it's a bad thing and should be addressed as a bad thing. You're not saying this thing is better if you call out this other person for killing people. If you say this person killed this person and that's bad, you're not saying but these two people killing each other are good. You're in fact also saying that's bad
Yeah.
because killing each other is bad. That's why the death penalty is weird because it says that there are times when it's okay to kill people
Yeah. I
and
think also
arguably,
soldiers get away with that. There's times when we laud soldiers for killing people.
well,
You know?
arguably that's what we do in general with the military. And I have had discussions with my partners about how I think things like assassinations and wars are at times okay. I'm not actually against killing, nor am I technically against violence to solve problems, which I suddenly realize it sounds like I am, but I'm actually
No, that's me.
far
I'm
more.
actually against
Yeah,
those things.
that's true. What was I doing arguing your side?
I don't know. I think you jump in the middle of my thought, which was I was going to say, but these just because you needed or humans needed these things to be this way to be more efficient like hundreds of years ago, millions of years ago, doesn't mean that that has any bearing on their worth or anything else. Today, it was it's like a fashion of genes sort of. This is a an analogy I'm trying to use to be more clear. It was like a
Mm-hmm.
fashion of how your genes express each other so that like it can be fashionable in cold weather to wear jackets, right? That's all I was saying.
Whoa. Whoa. Can you explain that connection to me
Well,
one more
okay.
time? Did you go
I live in
from we all
SoCal.
migrate? Hold on, hold on. Did you go from we all migrated out of Africa and got different skin tones and eye colors to reflect more sunlight or absorb more sunlight so that we could have the Milan fashion show?
Yes.
You know, that's a better racial theory than most I've heard this week. Which is sad, but I'm going to support it purely for that reason.
Um, okay. I'll go with that. Sure. Thank you?
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
I'll just leave it there. I don't know. Yeah. These things, they changed. We wear clothing, that changes. We're still all humans. It's still bad to be violent to each other, I think.
You should be excellent to each other.
Be excellent to each other. Ah. And so, backing up, or going back to my sad, sad outline, um, killing people is bad, and judging people about how they look is bad. And so, killing people or harming people is bad. Killing people because they look different than you is just bananas. And I don't want to say crazy because it's not it's not from being mentally ill so much as it's being from mistaught and judgmental on like stupid things or racial or culturally constructed things. Does that make sense? It's like killing someone because you don't like their jacket.
I think that there is a place to say that you can be.
Be careful
So,
with this one, Zero.
I have been playing the game of white terrorist bingo, like you do,
Like you do.
because in this country, if your skin is a certain color or you wear a certain type of hat, you will be called a terrorist, whereas other people with certain haircuts and certain skin tones will not be called a terrorist. So those
Yeah.
of us who take a more cynical view like to watch the news and see why, if you're from Africa and you fail to attack a thing, you're a terrorist, but if you're from America and you successfully attack people, you're a mentally troubled young person.
I feel like
I
that was
don't
really
think.
broad, and I don't know if
Hold
you're
on.
saying something specific. Sorry.
Well, it helps if you let me finish.
That's true, I'm sorry.
So often we want to ascribe the people who are like us to be mentally ill or mentally handicapped, and mental illness and mental problems are our go-to to loop back to the idea that I think sometimes killing is okay and sometimes violence is okay. Because sometimes you can commit violence, and we have a whole statute of murder levels for this. You can commit violence knowing exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, and in that case, you might be misguided. But you're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you mentally, except that you believe things that are, and this is difficult to say because a lot of this stuff is subjective, but you believe things that are wrong. You believe that you are somehow superior to another human being simply because of a random draw of genetics, for one example. If you believe that these things are true and you use them to go and kill people, no, I don't agree with your violence. If someone is trying to like actively out to kill you and you kill them, I'm more likely to agree with your violence. But you better have a really good reason, and it better be like something close. Although I don't necessarily always agree with that third one.
I don't know what you mean by something close.
Yeah,
We can table that though.
I
if you
don't
want
always,
to.
yeah, let's table some other episode we do need to go and visit our differing views on the use of force and violence in conflict.
Yeah.
This is probably, we have big topics that will already take way more time than we have to talk about.
Definitely.
So
let's stay a little bit more narrow in our grand oversweeping concepts today.
Yeah, exactly. We'll narrow down the concepts just a bit so that we aren't trying to talk about everything, because there's a limited amount of things you can talk about. So that's getting tabled, and I'm sure as the public debate rages over gun laws, we'll have a chance to revisit it.
Absolutely. So let's go back to talking about tribalism and othering people and how it's easier to define people as from outside sometimes. And so the example that I have of this is people that are still flying the Dixie flag, and how earlier you had mentioned, this is in a previous conversation, that are comparing it to people flying the Nazi flag, or people, or just making sort of analogies there that are othering the people that want to fly the Dixie flag and making them into this other thing, like the Nazis are this paragon of pure evil. It's like a shorthand for that.
Yeah, so the comparison I made for the viewers who weren't here during our little bit of a pre show talk was that when we talk about things like the Confederate flag, it's very common for our culture to compare them to the Nazi flag because when you think about our country, we want to think America, we're the best, we stand for democracy, we stand for equality, and we want to kind of gloss over the very dark history America has had of oppression and moving people out and forced relocation and stuff that we don't stand for, as if by acknowledging that those things happened, it somehow makes us worse as a people. So when people compare the Confederate flag to the Nazi flag, they are ignoring the fact that they're saying that over there are these evil foreigners who did evil things. You flying this flag is like you being an evil foreigner. And I
Yeah.
think it's more important for us to look at the Confederate flag and say, we have evil in our history. We have people who wanted to keep slaves so much they rebelled against the rest of the country. And that's written into the Declaration of Succession.
Is it?
That's written, yeah, that the guy who designed the Confederate flag wrote that flag stands for white supremacy over and the right to own slaves. And a number of the states that succeeded, this takes almost no research to discover from the people who wrote those declarations. It's the equivalent of their equivalent to the Declaration of Independence mentions slavery directly. One of the reasons that they succeeded over states' rights was seceded. Let's say seceded from here on out. One of the reasons they seceded was that the federal government was unwilling to force northern states to return slaves. The states' rights they wanted was to apply their states' rights north. So when people tell you it's about states' rights, yeah, it's about states' rights to have bounty hunters come up and get their slaves back. Most people don't tend to mention that part, but that's one of the states' rights they were fighting over.
I think a lot of these people want the states' rights to be things that I think were also maybe fought about, but it's more nicer to think about the South fighting over representation rights, which I
Which is not true.
was taught, I guess wrongfully,
Yes.
that was part of why they were fighting.
No.
So, yay, public schools and stuff. I don't know. So, I think
Yeah,
that
yay, public schools and stuff sounds about right.
trying to deny like the bad parts of our history is terrible. And so, I would agree with you that saying that equating the people that want to fly the Confederate flag to Nazi Germany people is not right, because it's not taking into account that they're still American. They're still here today. They're still coming from these concepts of, like you said, the Declaration of Secession from the South, saying fuck you to the North. And yeah, it doesn't need to happen. We should still. I think that also there's this, and I don't know, this is something I wanted to ask you about, is if somebody makes like a racist joke or thinks a racist thought, like and then is corrected by that or is called out from that and learns from that, does that mean that they are still a racist if they've learned from it and don't do those things anymore? I mean, is it like once a racist, always a racist? And I'm making this as a sort of line to we did terrible. The U.S. has done and continues to do terrible things. Does that mean that we are overall terrible, or can we not become better?
No, I would argue that's why it is important to recognize that this is not an outside evil. This is an inside evil, and until we confront it and overcome it, it will continue to affect our society. People, hopping right back onto that gun control debate.
Come on, Sierra.
You know what? Yeah, let's just avoid it. People will look for lots of reasons this happens, but ultimately it's because we as a country have a great difficulty confronting this as a homegrown evil. We're perfectly fine if ISIS is taking slaves and beheading people, and we're totally capable of saying, "Oh, this is a horrible thing." But if you mention the fact that the slave trade in the South during the height of the slave trade was worth $75 billion in modern day money, and just maybe that caused some people to go to war over the loss of their property, which happened to be other human beings that they treated as a subhuman classification of people, and made up genetic differences to say that, oh, they're happy to be treated as slaves. Yeah, that's a problem we need to address in our society that actually happened. This isn't stuff that's made up. This is all right there. You can find this in stuff people wrote at the time. It needs no embellishment because people just said it. People were proud of this. They were proud of talking about how different the Negro brain was.
It makes me want to throw up. Oh, it disgusts me, but okay.
Yeah. And it's not... We need to address it as a nation, and we're afraid to address it as a nation because it's not comfortable to address. And it shouldn't be comfortable. It's hard. One of the reasons you and I started this show is because it's hard to find people who actually want to talk about these sorts of things.
It is. It's super hard, and it makes you super uncomfortable and want to deflect and do terrible, or not terrible, or I don't know, terrible things, like interrupting people with awkward jokes, or just dismissing what they're saying and things like that. And it's really hard to remember not to do those things when you're uncomfortable, when you've been trained that this is a way that you can get away and like escape from those kinds of uncomfortable things.
Yeah, and that's one of those like really, really privileged things, is that you can deflect this. Like, think of how huge of a privilege that is to be able to deflect. Oh yeah, I don't have a cloning bay anymore. That was a terrible plan. Well, we'll probably lose this run. Because I was
Cloning
not paying
bays.
attention.
You need them.
I just got me and your husband killed. So that could have gone better.
So it's only the siblings left. It's only me and my brother.
Yes.
He's gonna mutiny. You know it.
I would be quite proud of him after the stellar leadership you and I have shown.
Yeah. Anyway, where were we?
Whoops.
Yeah, it is a luxury to be able to deflect.
Yeah, deflection is such a huge luxury. A lot of people don't get it. A lot of people just have to deal with it.
Yeah. Ugh. And it's bullshit. I don't know.
And a lot of the things that have been going around the Twitterverse and such right now are pointing out, when you go to your holiday and you don't want to deal with that racist relative of yours, someone has to deal with them. Your racist aunt is the person people like me have to deal with in line at the grocery store. You need to confront these people. It's important to confront these people. Because we don't have the privilege of avoiding them.
You don't have the privilege of having their ear, sort of, that they might listen to you and not be as defensive against you if you called somebody out on it.
No, we assume that they'll be super defensive against you as well. Our assumption is that they will be as intractable to you as they are to us.
I don't even know if that's always true, though.
Right, and it might not be, but all we know about these people is how horrible they are. You're the one
Okay.
who can talk to them in a friendly manner.
Fashion manner. Okay.
Yeah.
I think also where I was going about nations and people and things is that it you can be because these things are subjective and weird. I think that you can I think that you can be many things at once. And so I don't think that one detracts from the other. So, like, the US has done a lot of really, really, really bad things, right?
Yes.
Or, like, the racist aunt that you met in the grocery store was fucking terrible to you. But I don't think that that doesn't mean that the US hasn't done some good things, right? The US has done some good things.
Yes, that's called being an apologist. If you hear people talk about Christian apologists, that's what they're talking about.
What is an
I am not
apologist?
somebody who's like, yeah, you're being really hard on America, but we've done some good things. Why don't you talk about those more?
I don't
Because they're
think that
not
we
the
should talk about
problem.
them more. I just think that it's like still. I don't. Okay, I guess. Do you think that, like. I don't. I feel like maybe I'm apologizing for it. And maybe that's the wrong answer. Uh, but I still want to believe that America is like worthwhile and could change and be, all of the things that we hope that we are, that we say that we are and believe that we are right now falsely, even though we did bad things in the past. If I go and talk to my racist aunt and convince her not to be racist anymore, and she is not racist anymore, then yes, she still did bad racist things, but and maybe she could never make up for those things. This kid, even if he tomorrow was like, "Oh, race is bullshit," these people are just as worthwhile as me. They're just as much people as I am. They have as much right to live and do things that they want to do as I do. It won't make them undead. He'll still be a murderer, a terrible terrorist murderer. I don't know where I was going with this.
I don't either.
I guess that would be why, but maybe we can learn from that. I don't know. I don't think that it couldn't mean that he could still do positive things in the future, right? Maybe?
Who are we talking about specifically at this point?
American apologists like me. I don't know. Um, we'll go with
I feel like you kind
America.
of went all over the place with that, and I'd love to answer your question, but I'm not sure what it is.
I guess it's that, and this is why I don't like killing people because I think that it cuts the story short, is that maybe, tomorrow this guy could find out that he was super wrong and come out and say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong, I shouldn't have killed these people, I should be put away in jail for the rest of my life, blah, blah, blah." But then when he's in jail, open like a literacy thing and teach people how to read and do things that are maybe good.
A lot of the families are forgiving him. It's very odd that we ask for forgiveness for him, but when people like Amanda Palmer ask for forgiveness for Sarnayev, they get castigated for it.
Amanda Palmer?
Yeah, after the Boston bombing, she wrote a thing about how, yes, this was a horrible thing that was done. That doesn't mean that it wasn't done by a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah, that apparently 2 years ago that was totally unheard of, and I wonder if the guy's name hadn't been Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, if that would have been more accepted.
Probably. Because again, if you wear a Dodgers hat in California, you're probably going to be, judged for that. And if you have a name that doesn't sound like Smith, John Smith, you're going to be judged for that. But I think that it's important to talk about these things, and I I think that it's good for people to be angry about these things, but I think what the people who have the privilege have to know themselves is that yes, you're taking advantage of these luxuries, these privileges, but that doesn't, but you have the power to like help change them, and just because you have them doesn't make that you a bad person. Does that make sense? I feel like that's super being apologetic and like, look at
You're
me.
being such an apologist.
I know it's horrible, but I'm trying to talk for all of the people that are like talking for Dylan Roof, and I think it's bullshit because I think he was an asshole, and I think he was selfish and a murdering misogynistic, or not misogynistic, but racist, fanatical, tribalistic terrorist. And so I don't know why I'm trying to take his side. It's
Because he's
terrible.
part of your tribe. He looks like you, so you're trying to be on his side.
I'm also
It's not a good thing. It is a thing. It remains a thing. Look, here's
I think I
let's
just don't
step
want.
back.
Okay, step back. Tell me what.
People are going to be angry. We talked about this at the beginning. Some people are just going to be angry and you have to let them get over. Don't try to convince people to be comfortable with you. Don't assume people are going to judge you because you look like him. You are making the same mistake he did when you do that.
I think that's where I was trying to go with the privilege. Is that don't. I don't know. You said it better.
Yeah, you and I'm gonna say this part as well.
Okay, I'm ready.
Don't be the person who's telling, like, if you're that person who looks like the murderer who's going around telling everyone else, don't be so hard on this guy. Maybe don't be that person.
Yeah, and I feel really bad about that now that you've said it like that, because I read my a friend's page, and she is trans, and she's always saying things like not all cis, or not all, she says things like hashtag down with cis, and every fucking time that she says this, there's always someone who's like cis and like, hey, not all cis are like that.
Who
And
gets
it's like
super
saying,
defensive.
yeah, it's like not saying not all men, blah blah blah. You just have to know that it's not about you. That they're just being angry in an area that they can
There
be
we
angry
go.
in.
That's the best. The luxury that you have in this society is that you can, by default, assume that when somebody is focusing on a thing, they're focusing on you. And
Yeah,
and that is a taught thing. Because when you look around the society, everything looks like you. Everything is targeted towards people who look like you. All of these things are built to make it feel like you're the important person. And so when something bad happens and a person looks like you are freaked out because you're worried they're going to equate this person with you.
yeah.
I am not that dumb. I understand that you are a different person than him.
So
Somebody who's never met you before may not understand that, but that's okay because they have a right to their opinion as a person. And if you really want to change their mind, be a good person and accept that they don't have to like you. If you try to force them to like you, you are being worse than if you just left them alone.
yeah, I think I made a comment on her page, and I didn't think about it until you pointed out that what I was doing was exactly what these guys or people were saying by saying not all cis, is that when you're part of the majority, when you're part of the class that is being marketed to, basically, you
Mm-hmm.
have the luxury of not being boiled down to one part of your personhood.
Right, you are assumed to be a whole person. Other people are not assumed to be whole people because they don't look like if I look around at random advertisements I see on the street when I go downtown, I will see people that look like you wearing fashionable clothes, hiking up mountains, having lots of diverse interests. And I will see like, man, I am just amazed. How do white males find all the time to do all the cool stuff and have all the cool hobbies? It's weird that I never see black people doing all those hobbies.
I don't know.
Like, that sort of thing is rampant and it's internalized
All of them is
that,
so internalized.
yeah. But here's the thing. I
And it
know you're a
hurts when you
person
point
because
out that it's
oh
internalized. Sorry, that's all I wanted to say. It
no,
just
that's fine.
hurts when it points out that it's been internalized, and you have to really stop and think about it because you see all these things. You, especially you, my friend, Zero. I hope I can call you my friend. I think of you as my friend. You
Yeah,
grew
we
up
established this a few years back.
with people like me as your friend, my husband as your friend, lots of mutual friends that are, sort of my skin tone, very pale. Whereas we grew up in a society, in a culture that you were sort of one of our few black friends. And so I think that because of this, because we didn't
Well,
have.
except to one of them.
Which one? What?
I'm you know who I'm talking about, the you're not black person. I'm making a joke about that comment.
Oh, I don't super remember this conversation, so we'll have to have
We
it
had this
later.
conversation yesterday.
Ah, see.
We'll talk about it later. I don't
Okay.
no names.
No
We're
names. No
resisting the
names.
use of names.
Anyway, and so because we didn't have, like you're saying, black comic book characters as much, we didn't have black commercials as much, we didn't have black people in movies as much,
Except for
whereas,
Will Smith.
woo, but he's sort of his own thing.
It's true.
And
There ain't no one
Eddie
like Will
Murphy.
Smith.
Eddie Murphy's in movies like Golden Child and things like that.
Yeah.
But those are two to like the plethora of the Film Actors Guild.
Yeah, but I mean, if they take white people out of comic books, who will white people look up to? Nobody's making movies with white lead actors anymore. It's weird. Gah. Oh wait, that's so patently untrue.
Yeah, I don't even know.
You have thoughts. It's
Where where were we? So yeah, so when you're saying these things, when other people on the news are saying these things, people in the majority, I don't like to say majority because that's almost not true anymore because it's like in America there's lots of other people, but the people in power don't have
yes.
to worry about
The
being
the
drilled
whole thing about
specifically
the whole
because
thing about having privilege is that you can get away with you have privilege means you have less burdens. If you live as a person who has less privilege in this society, you have to go through every day thinking of each person you meet as an individual person because you don't know how they're going to react. Because for all I know, there's some sort of crazy rifle-toting mountain climber or maybe some sort of sandal-wearing hippie. I don't know with people who look like you. Billboards tell me you can be anything. I can be a basketball player or a football player because that's what billboards tell me. And it's ubiquitous and it's everywhere.
I don't know. Sometimes I see people with really bright teeth on billboards, but I live in Los Angeles, so
Well, everyone knows that people without bright teeth are all the same. But that's the thing. Also, totally deflecting.
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay to be uncomfortable with it. It's really hard to not do it. It is the point behind the not all men hashtag. It's when somebody says you're attacking men, you must think all men are like that. No, women are not stupid. Women
Yeah.
know that not all men do these things.
We still
The
go on
problem
dates with
is that
men. We still
also
fall in
not
love with
all
men.
men, yeah, not all men stand up for women either.
Yeah, it works
Like,
both ways.
yeah, there's lots of crap that not all men do, and if more of them did it, we'd have fewer of these problems. So
Yes.
instead of getting all defensive,
And dyslexic.
like you have been,
Sorry.
instead of being all defensive, look at it as a chance to improve. And when other people are getting defensive, say, "Hey, you don't need to be defensive about this." It's I don't think you did this personally. Things you did might have contributed to how this world ended up. That doesn't mean they're purely your fault though.
No.
And you know what? It's okay if you feel a little self-conscious about this. Lots of us are hurting from this. It it's a painful event that happened. It hurts for the whole country. We can all suffer together without you standing up and trying to convince me that this isn't your fault. Because I don't think it's your fault. I get it. There are evil people all over the world. The question that a lot of us have is, why do you only have this much compassion when the person looks like you? And that, I think that's a question we could just roll out. Like, if someone came up to you and said, "Hey," now this is going to be a terrible analogy. You can ding me for a bad analogy. I'm going to roll with it anyway. If one of your friends who's really down on transgender people said, I have testicular cancer. I have to have my left testicle removed.
Okay.
Will you still think of me as a man? It's very important that you as my friend still think of me as a man. Say, "No, men are people with two testicles. Everyone knows that. If you weren't, I mean, that's how you were genetically born. It's a fact of your life. You're something else now. I can't think of you as a man because you're missing a testicle." What right do you have to take away their ability to deny how they want to, like, think of themselves? As a human being, you should be able to say, "Why does it matter?
I
Yes, I'll
don't
still
know.
think of you as a guy." It's the same argument. "Oh no, you're not exactly the way you were genetically immediately. I guess I can't define you as the thing you want to be defined as."
I don't know. Because that, I think because we have tied those things together really hard in like our cultural definition of them. But as we were saying sort of earlier, cultural things are not, are very fluid, I guess. I don't want to say that they're not things, but
They're not things, generally. We make them up to make our lives easier. We make up these cultural
okay.
constructions to make our lives easier. Unfortunately, in the process of making our lives easier, we sometimes stop looking at. We get addicted to having easy lives. And the more privileged you are, the easier your life is, and the less you want to look at these choices you're making in your life. Like when you and I were talking about the idea of saying "I like you" versus not having to say "I like you" and just demonstrating that you like somebody by being near them. And you said, "This is a really hard thing to think about. I don't know why I like people to say "I like you" to me." That's because you've never had to think about it before, and you don't now. It's not going to ruin your life to not think too hard on that, but it just extrapolates out. These cultural constructs of things we just do without thinking about them because they make our lives easier.
Hmm.
Sometimes they make your life easier by making someone else's life harder. And at that point, the fact you refuse to think about it is actively harming another human being.
Could that be like judging someone for fashion or like the concept of money? You know what I mean?
Well, no, I have no idea where you're going with that. Can you explain a little bit more?
Okay. So maybe the money one might be easier because that's easy to see that it's it can be detrimental, I guess. Although judging people by their fashion, I feel like both of these are things that we learn how to use, or you can learn how to use to affect situations and sort of people. If we ascribe something to being good fashion, then we find those people sort of more appealing. If you see someone on the street and you're like, oh, that's like a really killer outfit, you know, they put thought and effort into that thing, and like I appreciate that value that we have ascribed fashion, right? But if you didn't learn fashion, or if you messed up, or that day you don't want to be fashionable, and someone judges you on your fashion, then you know they can treat you poorly for something that you sort of just chose to do that one day. Or in money, this is a separate example. We ascribe money to have value. And so if we sort of say, well, I have a lot of money, it's easier for me to trade this concept for goods rather than like labor or time for goods, then that's putting sort of like people that already have money in like a better position than people that don't have money that could trade labor or time or skills. Does that make sense? Zero? Help me out here. I don't remember where I was
I
originally
don't
going.
understand. So I feel like I understand more what you are saying. I feel like this is another case of you deflecting instead of just saying if you see someone with a different skin color than you might treat them worse than if you see someone who looks like you. And I don't think I understand why the deflection is occurring.
I think because I forgot what we were originally talking about because because I don't know, because deflection. Because
Yeah, it's really
deflection.
interesting because, like, if you want to talk about problematic cultural constructs, we're already talking about race and gender. We don't need to change. We can just keep talking about race and gender.
Uh, but people get so angry about those two, and people. I think, okay, I think because people get confused when you say these things don't exist. And I think what people are saying is they don't exist in the manner that we construe them to be. People can say fashion doesn't exist.
Okay, all right, I see what you're saying now. I now understand.
Okay,
Um, these things have only the significance we as human beings ascribe to them,
thank you.
which
That's
means
what I
that
was trying to say.
in the grand scheme of things, they have no real significance because if we as a human race decided to just drop and stop caring about them, we could.
Nothing would be
We have
lost.
done it before. Things would be lost, convenience would be lost for a certain group of people, which is why people are so hesitant to just drop them because people out there would lose a part of their life that makes it easier. Money is easier than the barter system.
That's true.
Having a consistent value for things, even though we don't have a consistent value for things, even in our current monetary system, but having a consistent value for things is easier than saying, but this steak was only one chicken egg last week. Why is it two chicken eggs this week? Inflation! Like, that sort of stuff is hard. So we create cultural constructs. But when your cultural construct starts being based around hurting somebody, you have a problematic construct.
Yeah, okay, I think that is what I was trying to say. And that there are that are things that we have to sort of deal around, like the shape of continents and how DNA works. But we only, the cultural construct is the significant that we give to areas of the geography or expressions of the genes, the value that we give those things. So that would be like countries and race, right?
Sure.
Okay. I don't know. We gotta wrap this up,
It's
Zero. We've been going
it's
for
so
over
fast.
an
Yeah,
hour.
you're just I find it fascinating that you keep trying to divorce this from being about people. It's exactly what we were talking about though. Thank you for being an excellent demonstration.
Uh, you got it,
A human
buddy.
being who looks different than you might be treated different by you. Sometimes
Yes.
this will be because you're afraid of them personally. Sometimes it's because you're afraid of the reduction of simplicity they represent in your life. Either way, you are being phobic. When you are being transphobic, or homophobic, or racist, or sexist, you are manifesting a fear, maybe not of that particular person, but a fear of the simplicity they are removing from your life. They are forcing you to think differently, and that makes you uncomfortable. You are afraid to change your mindset. Thus, you are phobic. It doesn't matter if you personally are afraid of gay people, you are afraid of the idea of marriage changing. Therefore, you are homophobic.
That's pretty elegantly put, Zero.
So, yeah, just accept it and then change your mindset. It's fine. It's not going to kill you. And it's hard. As you've demonstrated, you are actively talking about the issue and still have difficulty not doing it.
Man, it's so hard and I'm so lazy, Zero. Why did I agree to do this? Why
I
can't
don't
I
know,
just...
why did you agree to edit? That's what I don't understand. That's like something a crazy person agrees to.
Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. We didn't even get to a cultural appropriation or anything like that. We didn't
No,
even
I
get
told
to
you.
the idea
You wrote an
of,
outline where every single topic on your outline is more than an hour's conversation.
oh,
100% of your topics on that outline will
past
take
Katie,
more than
why
an
did
hour
you
to
do
discuss.
this?
Like, it is frankly hilarious. I was really amused by it because none of these topics can be covered in an hour. Many of these topics can't be covered in a week.
A week of
We will probably be
continual.
talking about these as hopefully a countrywide conversation for at least a few months. So we'll have another chance. But yeah, it
Okay.
was looking at your list was pretty fantastic for that reason.
It
Because
was
I
a
was just
long
like,
list.
oh my god, like none of these topics can be talked about in the time frame we normally do these episodes. That's good. It's good to have lots of things to talk about.
It is good. And thank you for calling me on when I was being defensive and deflecting and things like that. I'm glad that you did this because I do come from a cis, white, straight privilege, and so I don't think about these things until somebody is like, hey, that's bullshit. I don't think that maybe you are bullshit, but you are being bullshit.
Right, and that's the hardest thing to accept. To have somebody call you out for doing something that's dumb and not feel like they're calling you dumb.
Yeah. It's
I don't
really
think you're a
hard.
stupid person or I wouldn't talk with you. I think sometimes you have stupid opinions.
I think
And
that
you know
you have
what?
stupid opinions too
I
sometimes,
do.
Zira.
I have lots of stupid opinions. Sometimes I just go off on long rambling tangents about violence that I don't even agree with. So, like, it happens.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty decent leaving point, I think. What I haven't really okay, I don't want to finish up the thought this week zero because I don't think that it will do it justice. So can you
So
help me out this
you
week?
know what? You know what? Let's do it this way. Viewers, a little bit of the sausage making. The reason why
What is
Chicory does
sausage
the
making?
thought of the week. You never heard that saying?
Mm-mm.
The saying is, to put it extremely roughly, don't show people how the sausage is made or they won't want to eat it.
Oh, that's very true. That's a good saying.
Yeah. So basically, the reason why Chicory, and then I'm going to do it anyway, the reason why Chicory does the final thought is because people have been pressuring me to make a show like this for a long time, and I didn't think I could do it alone because I don't think of my opinions as being that important. But I really, really didn't want this show to turn into like a male lectures a woman for an hour and then gives the final thoughts. But I knew that there was a real risk of it turning out that way. That's also why I've asked her to do the outline. I asked her to edit because I don't like editing.
Oh man, I
Um,
regret that choice the most.
but the reason why she normally does the final thought and why she does the outlines is because I wanted it to be a natural dialogue, and I didn't want to just be lecturing, and I didn't want to just be saying here's how you should think. I
No,
wanted her to be an active and equal participant, and I wanted that to show through in the show.
thank you.
And so normally she gives the final thoughts for that reason.
Yeah.
And in this case, I guess I'm giving the final thoughts, but I'm not entirely sure what you want me to say.
Uh,
Like, what do you want me to give final thoughts on?
okay.
I'm
Well,
quite
okay. No,
I'm
no, no.
curious
Now I
on
have
this.
gotten my thoughts together, and I think that
Woo! Stalled for time. Also a talent of mine.
I think that I can maybe say something. So, as a person of privilege, in some regards, in many regards, I have not had to think about these things my whole life. Things were just given to me. It's not fair. I'm sorry. But speaking maybe to other people in privilege, and definitely to myself, it's something that I need to work on about not making things about myself and not forcing other people to apologize for me. Does that make sense? So, like, the people that are saying, like, you should really be clear when you're saying, like, hashtag not all cis or hashtag or down with cis, you should not say that because some cis people are okay. Some white people are okay. Not all of us are like that. We don't have to say that. That's being selfish and making it about us.
Wow, that's really well said, actually. Like you kind of stumbled in the middle, but you had an excellent recovery. You stuck the landing. No, I think that's an excellent way to put it.
Thank you.
When somebody else is struggling, when somebody else is struggling, it's not about you. It's about them, and you should be supportive of them. And it's hard sometimes because you can feel like their struggles are directly attacking you.
Yeah.
And Rose sometimes has expressed to me she feels like she can't do enough, and then she feels bad because she feels like her feeling bad, like it's a horrible loop. Her feeling bad makes it harder, like her feeling bad sidelines her so she can't do as much, and she already felt like she wasn't doing enough. So why did she choose to do a thing that would then sideline her? And then she feels bad because she feels like she's making it about herself. And I have to say, you are so much better than so many people I know, which then makes her feel worse because I'm a terrible person. But yeah, it's not about you. Helping is sometimes the best you can do. Sometimes the best you can do is sitting there with somebody and saying, yeah, that sucks. What was that? Did you see that episode of Parks and Recreation?
No, I don't watch that show, sorry.
Oh, there's an episode where
but
Rashida...
I can say that as like myself, that it's sometimes when you're talking to somebody about something that you're angry about, this is from personal experience because we're all angry about things sometimes. Sometimes you are not looking for an answer, you're just looking for sympathy or something, empathy. You're just looking for somebody to like listen to you and like say, I validate this pain.
Yeah, without going into a recap of an episode people can just watch on Netflix, the moral of that story is sometimes people don't want you to run out and immediately buy them things to help. Sometimes people just want a person who sits there and says, yeah, man, that sucks.
Yeah. Okay.
Everyone wants a Zuko.
Yeah!
Everyone wants to be there
Zuko.
When you're like, my girlfriend turned into the moon one time. Sometimes the right answer is just, that's rough, buddy.
That's rough, buddy.
I knew I'd find a show you actually watched.
I love that show. It's a great show. And Korra is even better.
Bold words. I don't really disagree with them, though.
So yeah, that's my closing thoughts.
I think you ended it well when you said, sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes it's about what the other person is going through.
Yeah, okay. Good.
I think we can end on that note.
Okay, good.
Our second run is going a lot better. We've made it through a couple areas. We've got 2 new crew members, so we're working together in harmony. We're 3 mantises, an Ingi, which is kind of like a silicon-based engineering life form, a slug, and a human. So we are not being tribal, except that I hate slavers and have attacked them at every chance I get.
Good.
So,
yay!
Which is also being tribal, but whatever.
That's a conversation for next time.
That's a conversation that we didn't get to this time, but is on the outline. So yeah, we want to wrap it up there?
Yeah, and...
tell them how to get a hold of us.
Just getting to that, dude. Gosh, every week you beat me to that. Oh!
I regret nothing.
You don't comment on our YouTube section, but please tweet us at I am 123 Chicory and 0. What are you?
I'm at 0 Utopia.
And please like us and subscribe. And maybe if you do both of those things and enough people do that, I will put up my ridiculous outline for this video.
That would be hilarious.
I know, and then you can yell at me for that, or maybe I'll learn something. Maybe you can be like...
I think that's a good place to end. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Okay, have a good day.
Bye.